Money doesn't change people, it reveals them. It's a mirror, not a mask. If you are careless with $1, you'll be careless with $1 million. The secret is not to chase money, it's to become the kind of person money is attracted to. Wealth doesn't start in the bank, it starts in the calendar. It's not about how much money you have, it's about how you use your hours. Poor minds look for comfort. Rich minds look for compounding. Every decision you make is either costing you time or creating you time. Let me tell you something that completely shifted my life. Time is more valuable than money. See, when I was young and broke, I thought I was being smart by trying to save every dollar. I'd spend hours driving across town just to get a small discount. Or I'd fix things myself instead of hiring help, thinking I was being resourceful. But one day, I realized something shocking. While I was saving money, I was wasting time. And time, my friends, is the only resource you can never get back. You can lose money and earn it again, but once an hour slips away, it's gone forever. Millionaires understand this. They don't look at a clock the way most people do. They see time as capital, invisible currency that can either make them rich or keep them poor. The poor spend time to save money, the rich spend money to save time. That's not arrogance, it's intelligence. It's recognizing that what you focus your hours on becomes your life's result. I remember when my mentor once said to me, "If you really understood how precious time is, you'd guard it like gold." And he was right, because every wasted hour is a piece of your potential wealth thrown away. Now, the challenge for most people is that they don't measure time. They think a wasted day is just a bad day. But let me tell you, wasted days become wasted years. And before long, you're standing in the same place you were 5 years ago, wondering what happened. The truth is, nothing happened. You just didn't value time enough to direct it. The rich plan their days like builders design a skyscraper. Every brick of time has a purpose. I learned to ask myself one simple question that changed my productivity forever. Is this the best use of my time right now? That question has saved me years. See, the average person spends hours reacting to messages, to problems, to entertainment, while the wealthy spend hours creating ideas, systems, relationships, and opportunities. The difference isn't intelligence, it's direction. You can have all the brains in the world, but if your hours are scattered, your results will be too. Sometimes people tell me, "I just don't have enough time." And I always say, "No, you do. You just haven't prioritized it." Because the rich don't get more hours in the day. They just use their hours differently. They delegate, they automate, they focus. They spend money to buy back their time, whether that's through hiring, outsourcing, or investing in systems that run while they sleep. The poor see spending money as loss, the rich see it as leverage. So here's what I learned. If you want to become wealthy, stop managing time, start investing it. Treat each hour like a piece of gold. Spend it wisely, protect it fiercely, and multiply it daily. Because in the end, the way you use your time will always tell the story of how you lived and how wealthy you became. Wealth doesn't begin in the wallet. It begins in the mind. Long before the money shows up, the mindset does. I've met people with thousands in the bank, but poverty in their thinking. And I've met others with almost nothing, yet they carried the seeds of wealth within them, ideas, habits, and philosophies that were only waiting for time and effort to bloom. You see, money doesn't make you rich. Thinking does. The rich aren't lucky. They're logical. They understand that wealth is a result, and results always come from causes. Now, when I was younger, I used to think wealth was about opportunity or inheritance or being in the right place at the right time. But my mentor told me something that hit me hard. If you gave $1 million to a poor thinker, it would soon disappear. But give a great thinker just one idea, and they'll turn it into 1 million. That's the difference between cause and effect. Poor thinking blames luck. Rich thinking creates results. Let me explain. Poor thinkers wake up every day asking, why is life so unfair? Rich thinkers wake up asking, what can I do today to create a better result? One question leads to excuses, the other leads to action. And it's your daily questions, not your current circumstances, that shape your future. Wealth is a mental game long before it becomes a financial one. If your thinking is limited, your bank account will reflect it. The first step to changing your finances is changing your thoughts. You've got to condition your mind to see abundance, not lack, to look for opportunity, not obstacles. Every successful person I've studied has one thing in common. They discipline their thoughts. They don't allow fear, scarcity, or self-doubt to linger. They replace those thoughts with belief, vision, and strategy. That's what you must train your mind to do, to become the guard of your own gate. When I started my journey, I didn't have much, but I did have a notebook. And in that notebook, I wrote affirmations, goals, and ideas. I would read them every morning and every night. Why? Because repetition creates belief, and belief creates behavior. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If your mind is set on I can't, your brain will find proof to back it up. But when you start saying, I will, the world begins to rearrange itself to make it true. So start where you are. Begin each day by feeding your mind something that stretches it. A book, a quote, a story of someone who built something from nothing. Study the patterns of wealthy thinkers and copy their logic. When you catch yourself saying, I hope, replace it with, I will. Hope is passive, will is power. Because the truth is this, wealth doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who think. Train your thoughts to build before your hands do, and soon your outer world will mirror your inner one. The mind builds the fortune long before the wallet receives it. The difference between the poor and the wealthy isn't just found in the size of their bank account. It's found in the size of their vision. The poor think about the next paycheck, the next bill, the next weekend. The rich think about the next decade. They're not driven by immediate comfort. They're guided by long-term purpose. Most people live in survival mode. How can I make it through this week? But those who build wealth live in strategy mode. How can I shape the next 10 years? When I was young, I remember working for small pay, and every Friday felt like freedom. I'd get my paycheck, spend it quickly, and by Monday, I was broke again, working for the next one. That's how most of the world lives, trapped in a cycle of earning and spending, without ever pausing to ask, where is this leading? It wasn't until I learned to stretch my thinking beyond the week, beyond the month, that my life began to change. Someone told me, don't think of income, think of outcomes. That was the turning point. You see, the wealthy don't just plan their days, they plan their decades. They ask, what do I want my life to look like 10 years from now? And then they reverse engineer their future into daily habits. They understand that success doesn't come from occasional effort, it comes from consistent vision. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. But the 10-year vision is what gives you direction, discipline, and power. Now, don't misunderstand, long-term thinking isn't about ignoring the present. It's about giving meaning to it. When you know where you're going, even your daily grind becomes purposeful. Every choice, every sacrifice, every bit of discipline connects to a bigger picture. The poor see a delay in pleasure as a punishment. The rich see it as an investment. That's why wealthy minds can say no to impulse spending and yes to strategic saving. They're not saying no to comfort forever. They're saying yes to greater freedom later. Here's the simple truth. Your habits today are building your future, whether you realize it or not. If you plant short-term seeds, laziness, distraction, impulse, you'll reap short-term results. Stress, debt, frustration. But if you plant long-term seeds, discipline, education, and persistence, the harvest will come, and it will be worth far more than a paycheck. So take a moment and design your 10-year vision. Where do you want to live? What kind of person do you want to become? What impact do you want to leave behind? Then break that vision into yearly goals, and those yearly goals into daily disciplines. Every great life is built this way. Vision first, habit second, reward last. And remember, the difference between a paycheck and a fortune is patience. The average person works for Friday. The wise person works for freedom. Don't just survive this week. Design the next decade. One of the greatest distinctions between the wealthy and everyone else is this. Millionaires think in terms of multiplication, not maintenance. The average person earns a little, saves a little, and tries to protect what they have. The wealthy, on the other hand, take what they earn and multiply it. They don't seek safety, they seek systems. They understand that true wealth isn't built by holding tight to what you've gained. It's built by expanding what you've created. You see, when you're focused on maintaining, you operate from fear of losing what you have. But when you're focused on multiplying, you operate from faith in your ability to create more. The difference is profound. The poor ask, how can I keep what I've got? The rich ask, how can I make what I've got grow? And that single shift in thinking changes everything. When I started learning about wealth, I used to save every dollar, thinking that if I just guarded my money long enough, I'd be safe. But I discovered that money doesn't grow in a cage. It grows when it's put to work. The rich don't save for safety. They invest for growth. They reinvest profits, not to buy more comfort, but to create more opportunity. They know that every dollar can become an employee if you give it a job. Think about it. A tree doesn't grow by holding on to its seeds. It multiplies by planting them. The same goes for wealth. Every time you earn, you should be asking, what part of this can I plant back into my future? Reinvest in your education. That's knowledge multiplying. Reinvest in your business. That's systems multiplying. Reinvest in people. That's influence multiplying. Every reinvestment is a seed of expansion. The rich also understand the power of compounding, not just money, but effort, relationships, and ideas. Compounding is when the effects of small, consistent actions begin to grow beyond proportion. One good decision leads to another, one connection leads to more, and one skill opens multiple doors. Most people quit before the compounding effect begins, but the wealthy stay long enough to let time and momentum work for them. And that's another key. They measure progress in decades, not days. While most people look for instant results, the rich look for exponential ones. They don't need every seed to sprout overnight. They're patient enough to nurture growth until it multiplies on its own. That's why they build systems, not just income streams, but mechanisms that create value even while they sleep. So review your life monthly. Don't just ask, what did I earn? Ask, what did I multiply? Look at your money, your skills, your relationships, and find one area to grow tenfold. Because the secret to wealth isn't in holding on tighter, it's in letting your efforts expand wider. Never aim to maintain, that's the mindset of survival. Aim to multiply, that's the mindset of mastery. Most people think success is built on excitement, new projects, new goals, new bursts of motivation. But that's not how wealth works. True success, lasting success, is built on something far less glamorous: boring consistency. The rich understand that mastery is hidden inside repetition. They know that doing the small, right things every single day creates results that look like magic years later. When I started my journey, I was like most people. I wanted everything to feel exciting. I thought success came from passion, energy, and enthusiasm. And while those are important, they don't build wealth. Habits do. It wasn't until I learned to do the simple things daily, to read the books, make the calls, study the numbers, track the progress, that my results started to change. Excitement can start a journey, but consistency finishes it. The poor chase variety. The rich chase mastery. And the truth is, mastery is boring. It's doing the same routine over and over, refining it, perfecting it, tightening it, until it becomes second nature. The average person gets bored and quits just before the compound effect begins to work. The wealthy persist through the boredom because they know boredom is the bridge between average and extraordinary. Think about the farmer. He plants the seed, waters it every day, waits patiently, and trusts the process. He doesn't dig up the seed every week to see if it's growing. He knows the magic is happening underground where he can't see it. That's how wealth grows, quietly, invisibly, through consistent daily action. So here's what I began doing. I kept a daily checklist of key habits. I wrote them down and reviewed them every night. Even the smallest ones. Did I read my book? Did I invest time in my business? Did I save and plan? Did I reach out to one new person? You'd be amazed what happens when you do that consistently for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You start to build momentum. And momentum is what makes the process easier. I also started tracking my small wins. The problem is, most people only celebrate the big ones, the promotion, the profit, the milestone. But success isn't one big moment. It's 1,000 small wins stacked together. When you start acknowledging them, you stay motivated even when the process feels dull. And here's something I had to remind myself often. Boredom is not a sign you're failing. It's a sign you're mastering. The moment your routine feels automatic, you're stepping into efficiency. You've built the habit. The body is trained. The mind is conditioned. That's when the real growth begins. The difference between those who make it and those who don't is rarely talent. It's consistency. One keeps showing up long after the other gets distracted. So if you ever find yourself bored, take it as a good sign. It means you're on the right path. Keep going, keep repeating, keep refining, because success isn't hidden in what's exciting. It's hidden in what's consistent. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned was that you can't do big things alone. Success is not a solo project. It's a team sport. Millionaires understand this truth deeply. They don't just build businesses, they build people. They don't just grow income, they grow influence. The poor often chase money, but the rich focus on relationships. They know that one great connection can be worth more than a decade of effort. When I started out, I thought hard work was everything. I believed that if I just put in enough hours, stayed disciplined, and kept my head down, success would eventually find me. But I was wrong. I was working hard, yes, but I was also isolated. I didn't have mentors to correct my blind spots, peers to challenge my ideas, or visionaries to stretch my thinking. And because of that, my progress was slow. Then one day I realized, while I was working alone, successful people were working together. See, the wealthy understand leverage, and the greatest form of leverage is people. The right circle multiplies your vision. They hold you accountable, introduce you to opportunities, and share insights that could take you years to discover on your own. But here's the key. They only open those doors to people who bring value, not just need. That's why I began showing up differently. Instead of asking, what can I get from this person? I started asking, what can I give? If you want to enter powerful rooms, bring something of value, an idea, a resource, an encouraging word, or even just enthusiasm. Contribution is the entry ticket to any circle worth joining. The average person spends time with people who make them comfortable. The wealthy spend time with people who make them grow. It's easy to be the smartest one in the room, but it's dangerous. Because when you're always the smartest, you stop learning. Growth demands discomfort, and sometimes that discomfort comes from being around people who think bigger, move faster, and expect more from themselves and from you. So here's what I did. I made a list of people who inspired me, not because of their money, but because of their mindset. I started reaching out, attending events, reading their books, listening to their ideas. Slowly, my environment changed, and as my environment changed, so did my thinking. And when my thinking changed, my results followed. You can't have $1 million dream with a minimum wage circle. The people around you are either pulling you closer to your potential or keeping you tied to your past. Choose your circle with intention. Spend time with people who talk about vision, not gossip. Ideas, not others. Growth, not problems. In the end, your network will shape your net worth, not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Build circles that elevate you, challenge you, and stretch you beyond who you thought you could be. Because wealth doesn't grow in isolation, it grows in connection. Money is a strange thing. It can either serve you or enslave you. It can build your freedom or feed your ego. The difference lies not in how much you have, but in how you think about it. Most people use money as a mirror to reflect status, approval, and validation. The wealthy, however, use money as a tool to build systems, create opportunities, and expand their freedom. That's the great divide. It's not money itself that makes the difference. It's the mindset behind it. I remember when I first started earning a little extra. It felt good, better than good. Suddenly, I could afford a nicer suit, a newer car, a little applause, and for a while, I thought that was success. But the applause fades and the payments stay. I learned that lesson the hard way. The car depreciated, the shine wore off, but the debt didn't. That's when I realized money that's spent for image disappears, but money that's invested for purpose multiplies. You see, money should never be emotional. It's not a status symbol, it's a strategy. When you let emotions drive financial decisions, fear, pride, envy, you become the servant of money instead of its master. And that's why so many people stay trapped. They buy to be seen rather than to be free. The wealthy think differently. They ask a different set of questions. Before they buy, they don't ask, can I afford it? They ask, will this make me freer, smarter, or more productive? They don't chase applause, they chase leverage. Their joy doesn't come from display, it comes from direction. Money, to them, is a soldier. Every dollar must have a mission to earn, to grow, to serve, to build. One of my mentors once said, never buy luxury until your assets can buy it twice. That changed how I saw everything. I stopped buying things that looked rich and started building things that made me rich. Books, businesses, investments, and relationships. And you know what happened? The need to impress others disappeared. Because when you're building something real, you no longer need validation. Results become your reputation. When you understand that money is a tool, it stops controlling you. You stop chasing things. You don't need to impress people who don't care. You start asking better questions. You start valuing time over toys. You start seeing that wealth isn't measured by what you have, but by how long you can live the way you choose without worrying about the next paycheck. And that's what true wealth is: freedom. The freedom to think, to create, to give, to live life on your terms. The poor use money to look rich for a moment. The rich use money to stay free for a lifetime. So before you spend another dollar, ask yourself, will this purchase make me freer or just make me look like I am? Because one buys applause, the other buys independence. And that difference will determine which side of wealth you live on. I've learned over the years that your most valuable asset isn't the stocks you buy or the property you own, it's your mind. Every millionaire I've studied, every entrepreneur I've met, they all invest heavily in themselves before they invest in anything else. They understand a simple truth: you can only grow as fast as you grow inside. Money follows personal development. If your thinking is narrow, your bank account will be too. If your vision is limited, so will be your opportunities. I remember when I first started working, I was focused on earning, paychecks, commissions, bonuses. I thought money itself would solve everything. But no matter how much I earned, my results plateaued. Then I made a conscious decision. I would spend time and money on myself first. I bought books, attended seminars, listened to mentors, and studied the people I wanted to emulate. Slowly, I began to see a shift. My thinking expanded. My decisions became sharper, and the money started following. Not because I chased it, but because I had upgraded the factory that produces it, my mind. Investing in yourself is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Millionaires treat their personal growth like they treat a high-performing investment. They feed it, they nurture it, and they monitor its returns. Reading, listening, learning, practicing, these aren't optional. Every hour spent on learning compounds, just like an investment in the market. And here's the key: you don't need to start rich to start this. Every person has the ability to allocate a portion of their time and income toward their own development. 5% of income on courses, books, or coaching can change the trajectory of your life. 1 hour of learning each day compounds into wisdom and skill that multiplies every action you take. It's also about skill acquisition. Every 90 days, I recommend adding one high-value skill, something that directly increases your ability to create, lead, or earn. It could be public speaking, negotiation, financial literacy, digital marketing, whatever elevates your capacity to produce results. Think of your skills as seeds. Plant them, water them consistently, and they grow into trees that bear fruit for decades. Remember, the assets you accumulate outside of yourself will always be limited by the assets you cultivate inside. A portfolio of investments without a portfolio of skills, knowledge, and judgment will never reach its full potential. The mind is the ultimate leverage. It's portable, resilient, and capable of generating wealth in ways money alone cannot. So start today. Invest in yourself first. Read, learn, practice, expand. Every dollar spent, every hour devoted, every new skill acquired is not an expense, it's a deposit into your future, freedom, growth, and abundance. The richer your mind, the richer your life will become. I've seen countless people chase lifestyle, accumulating bigger homes, faster cars, and fancier gadgets, thinking this is the measure of success. But here's the truth. A lifestyle is temporary. It disappears the moment your effort stops or your circumstances change. Wealth that is tied only to comfort or appearance evaporates quickly. True richness is in what you leave behind, the lessons, systems, and values that outlast your presence. This is what I call legacy. It's the only kind of wealth that compounds beyond your lifetime and touches lives you may never even meet. From my earliest days, I noticed that the people who inspired me weren't necessarily the ones with the largest bank accounts or the flashiest cars. They were the ones whose wisdom, habits, and principles had ripple effects across generations. Their words and actions left impressions that continued to guide, empower, and uplift long after they were gone. I realized early on that if I wanted my life to matter, I had to aim higher than my own comfort or temporary enjoyment. I had to think about how my work, my words, and my influence could be built into something permanent, something that helped others grow and thrive. Building legacy begins with clarity. Ask yourself, what is the one principle, value, or lesson you want people to remember you for? Write it down. Define it in a single sentence. Then live it deliberately every day. Each action, each decision, each interaction becomes a building block of that legacy. Teach others what you've learned, whether through formal mentorship, casual conversation, or leading by example. Share not just your knowledge, but also your experiences, mistakes, and strategies. You'll be surprised how far your lessons can travel when you commit to giving them away. Document your principles and lessons. A notebook, a journal, even a blog. These can become the blueprint for others to follow. When you teach, you reinforce your own understanding and create an enduring resource. Every moment spent developing people, every principle you model consistently, every contribution made with intention extends the influence of your life far beyond your immediate presence. Aiming for legacy changes how you view wealth. It shifts your focus from immediate gratification to long-term impact. It turns daily actions into investments, not just expenses. You begin to live and work not for approval, not for status, but for meaning. You become a multiplier. Your life touches others, who in turn touch more lives. So, define your legacy clearly. Teach, document, and lead by example. Live every day in alignment with what you want to be remembered for. In doing so, you ensure that your wealth, wisdom, and influence will grow long after you're gone. Most people think wealth is about how much you earn in a day, a month, or a year. They chase bigger paychecks, promotions, or commissions, thinking that more income equals more freedom. But the truth is, income that disappears the moment you stop working is fragile. True financial power comes when your money, your systems, and your ideas work for you even while you sleep. That is cash flow. I've learned through experience that building cash flow transforms your life. It buys time, options, and the freedom to focus on what matters most. When I first began in business, I noticed a pattern. Some people earned a lot but never seemed to get ahead. Others earned less but steadily built assets that paid them continuously. The difference wasn't luck or intelligence, it was mindset. Those who built recurring income streams thought in terms of systems and leverage, not just labor. They understood that working for money alone limits you. Having money work for you multiplies your freedom and impact. Shifting from income chasing to cash flow building requires a different approach. It starts with seeing every dollar as a tool, not a reward. Instead of spending all you earn, allocate a portion to assets that generate returns independently. Rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, and automated businesses are examples of how money can create more money without constant effort. Each asset you acquire becomes a tiny employee working for you around the clock. Reinvesting is key. When returns come in, don't withdraw them immediately for consumption. Instead, put them back into assets that compound your wealth. This habit creates a snowball effect. Small, consistent actions over time lead to exponential growth. I've observed that those who embrace this approach eventually reach a point where they no longer need to trade hours for dollars. Instead, they control their time, invest in opportunities, and pursue their vision without financial anxiety. Another essential step is to build systems. Whether it's a business, an online platform, or an investment portfolio, design it to operate independently of your direct effort. Automation, delegation, and technology make it possible for your work to continue producing income while you focus on new growth areas. The richest people don't just work harder, they work smarter, building processes that multiply results. The mindset shift is profound. Stop asking, how much can I earn? And start asking, how can I make my money and my systems earn continuously for me? When your efforts produce cash flow rather than one-time income, you gain freedom. Freedom to learn, to give, to create, and to live on your terms. Invest, systemize, reinvest, and scale. Focus on cash flow, not just paycheck. The moment your assets earn while you rest, you have stepped into true financial independence. Wealth doesn't thrive in confusion, it thrives in clarity. It loves precision, structure, and order. Every dollar has to know where it's going before it arrives, and every minute must be given a purpose before it's spent. Chaos, on the other hand, leaks money silently. When your mind, finances, or habits are disorganized, wealth slips through the cracks. The rich understand that money is attracted to discipline. Order is not just about neatness. It's about respect for what you've been given and readiness for what's coming next. I learned early that wealth begins with structure long before it shows up in the bank. When I was young and struggling, I thought making more money would solve everything. But I later realized that if I didn't learn to manage the small amounts wisely, I'd mismanage the large ones too. If you can't control $1, you can't control 1,000. And if you can't manage 1,000, you won't be trusted with 1,000,000. Life rewards stewardship, not wishful thinking. Order creates confidence. When you sit down weekly and review your finances, something powerful happens. You start seeing patterns. You begin to understand where your money goes, where it grows, and where it disappears. It's not a boring chore. It's a discipline of wealth. You start to lead your money instead of chasing it. One of the most valuable habits I developed was holding what I call a money meeting every week. Even when I was broke, I'd write down every expense, every source of income, every goal. Over time, those notes turned into plans, and those plans turned into progress. Technology now gives us tools the wealthy of the past could only dream of. Automate what you can, savings, bill payments, and investments. The goal is to remove friction and emotion from your financial habits. When your savings grow automatically and your bills are handled efficiently, you create space for creativity and strategy. That's what order does. It gives your mind the freedom to think beyond survival. But order doesn't stop with money. It extends to your environment. Look around your workspace. Is it inspiring or distracting? The state of your surroundings often reflects the state of your mind. Decluttering isn't just tidying up, it's removing mental noise. When you create a space of focus and simplicity, you send a signal to your brain that you're serious about growth. Wealth loves environments where clarity lives. The truth is simple. Chaos and abundance cannot coexist. If you want to invite prosperity into your life, prepare a place for it to stay. Organize your time, structure your finances, and clear your space. When your world moves from confusion to clarity, you align yourself with the natural order of success. Wealth doesn't come by chance, it comes by choice, and that choice begins with order. Most people want everything fast. Fast money, fast results, fast success. But the truth is, anything built quickly rarely lasts. Millionaires don't think in days or even months, they think in decades. The poor chase immediate gratification. The rich build with time as their ally. Wealth, real wealth, is never an event, it's a process. And the process takes patience, planning, and the ability to think beyond the moment. When I was young, I wanted everything now. I'd plant a seed on Monday and expect a tree by Friday. But nature doesn't work that way, and neither does wealth. You can't rush seasons, you can only respect them. The rich understand that the seed always comes before the harvest, and time is the bridge between the two. If you can't wait, you'll never create. If you can't endure the process, you'll never enjoy the promise. Thinking in decades means making decisions today that your future self will thank you for. The average person makes choices based on emotion. What feels good now. The wealthy make choices based on vision. What will feel great later? They don't ask, what will this give me today? They ask, what will this make me become 10 years from now? That's the kind of thinking that builds empires. I often tell people, don't just plan your next paycheck, plan your next decade. Sit down and write out your 10-year vision for your life. Where do you want to live? What kind of person do you want to become? What kind of impact do you want to leave? When you know where you're going, every day gains purpose. And every decision, no matter how small, either moves you closer to that vision or further away. Investing with a long-term horizon changes how you handle money. You stop gambling and start growing. The stock market, real estate, business, all these vehicles reward patience. The poor buy trends, the rich buy time. The poor panic in storms, the rich hold through seasons. When your eyes are on the horizon, temporary setbacks lose their power. And let's not forget delayed gratification, the quiet discipline of the wealthy. Most people trade the future for comfort. They buy to feel better now, not to live better later. But the rich understand that discipline today multiplies options tomorrow. Every dollar you don't waste, every temptation you resist, every sacrifice you make, they're all deposits into your future wealth. Patience is not just waiting, it's preparation. If you can learn to think in decades, not days, you'll never again be shaken by temporary noise. You'll act differently, invest differently, live differently. Because you'll know that real wealth doesn't come to those who rush. It comes to those who endure, who persist, and who plan far beyond the present moment. The impatient chase excitement, the wise build empires, and empires take time. Most people hear the word debt and immediately think of danger, sleepless nights, overdue bills, and financial stress. But the truth is, debt itself isn't the enemy. It's how you use it that determines whether it becomes a tool or a trap. The poor borrow to consume, the rich borrow to create. Debt, in the right hands, builds empires. In the wrong hands, it builds prisons. It's not about avoiding debt, it's about mastering it. When I was younger, I made the mistake of treating debt like an escape hatch. I borrowed to feel better, not to do better. I used credit to buy things that lost value the moment I touched them: clothes, gadgets, dinners, the illusion of success. But here's what I learned. Every borrowed dollar must work harder than you do. If it doesn't earn you income, increase your equity, or build your future, it's a liability, not leverage. The rich understand this distinction deeply. They don't fear debt, They respect it. They know how to make it serve them, not enslave them. The wealthy use what's called good debt. That's debt attached to something that pays them back. Rental properties, business investments, education that increases earning power, or assets that appreciate over time. They see money as energy and debt as borrowed energy. If you can channel that energy into something that grows, you've just accelerated your wealth building process. But if you spend it on something that fades, you've just delayed your freedom. I often tell people, before you take on any debt, ask yourself one simple question. Will this create income or expenses? If the answer is expenses, stop. If the answer is income, and you've done your homework, proceed with wisdom. There's a world of difference between borrowing to buy a car that depreciates and borrowing to buy a delivery van that earns. One feeds your ego, the other feeds your future. Another principle the rich live by is control. They use credit to expand, not to escape. They don't use it to run from responsibility, but to multiply opportunity. They borrow with a plan, with cash flow projections, with contingencies. They use other people's money, but they also respect it like it's their own. Discipline turns debt into a ladder. Recklessness turns it into a hole. If you want to move from debt being a burden to debt being a blessing, start by changing your mindset. Learn financial literacy before financial leverage. Study how money moves. Build your cash flow first. Then, and only then, consider how credit can amplify your growth. Never let debt be emotional. Make it mathematical. In the end, remember this. The poor borrow to feel rich today and end up poorer tomorrow. The rich borrow to become free tomorrow and may look modest today. It's not about the comfort debt can bring, it's about the capacity it can build. When used with wisdom, debt becomes one of the most powerful tools in the wealth builder's arsenal. Quiet, strategic, and transformational. Before you build anything great, you must first build it to last. Most people want to multiply before they protect, to expand before they secure. But the truth is, the first rule of wealth is preservation. You can't grow what you can't keep. You can't multiply what leaks. Imagine trying to fill a bucket full of holes. That's how many people handle money. They earn, they invest, they hustle, but without protection, one storm can wash it all away. When I began to grow financially, I learned that the hardest money to make isn't the first dollar, it's the dollar you keep. Anyone can get lucky once, but staying wealthy is an art built on structure, not chance. The rich understand this. They build financial fortresses long before they start constructing skyscrapers. They insure their assets, safeguard their income, and plan for the unexpected because they know that security is not a luxury, it's leverage. I remember meeting a man who made a fortune in real estate. For years, everything he touched turned to gold. But when the market turned, he lost everything, not because he was foolish, but because he wasn't fortified. He had no reserves, no diversification, no safety net. It taught me a lesson I never forgot. Before you grow your wealth, you must guard it like a farmer guards his field from pests. You protect the seeds before you expect the harvest. So how do you protect what you've built? You start with the fundamentals. Keep an emergency fund, not because you're expecting disaster, but because you respect the unpredictable. 6 months of living expenses isn't a cushion of fear. It's a foundation of confidence. When emergencies come, and they will, you can think clearly, act strategically, and avoid emotional mistakes. Next, get proper insurance and legal protection. The wealthy don't gamble with risk, they transfer it. Insurance isn't an expense, it's a shield. And having your legal structures in place, whether it's a will, trust, or business entity, isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. You're not preparing for the worst, you're protecting the best. Then there's diversification, the art of spreading your seeds across different soils. Don't plant your entire fortune in one field. The market changes, industries evolve, and economies shift. The rich never depend on one source of income or one type of asset. They diversify across stocks, real estate, businesses, and intellectual property. When one slows down, another picks up. It's not about fear, it's about foresight. Here's the truth. Multiplication without protection is the fastest road to regression. Every expansion must be guarded by structure. Every risk must be backed by strategy. Your goal isn't to avoid risk, it's to manage it wisely. When your base is secure, you can take bolder moves, knowing one mistake won't take you out of the game. So, before you try to double your money, make sure you've built a fortress around what you already have. Protect before you multiply, because wealth that isn't protected isn't wealth. It's wishful thinking. Wealth, my friends, is never the goal. It's the reflection of the person you become along the journey. You don't chase money, you attract it by the kind of person you are. Because here's the truth. Money doesn't change you, it amplifies you. If you're careless without it, you'll be reckless with it. If you're generous when you have little, you'll be more generous when you have plenty. Wealth doesn't build character, it reveals it. That's why the real work of becoming wealthy begins long before the first dollar shows up in your bank account. When I was young, I thought if I could just make enough money, everything else would fall into place. But then I met a wealthy man who told me something that changed my life. He said, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." That one line shifted my entire perspective. Because the truth is, if you gave $1 million to someone who hasn't developed the mindset to handle it, that money would soon find its way into someone else's hands. Someone more prepared, more disciplined, more aware. The rich don't just build businesses, they build themselves. They understand that their income rarely exceeds their personal development. If you want more, you must become more. If you want to attract better opportunities, you must become the kind of person who recognizes and deserves them. Wealth responds to character, not craving. That's why keeping promises, even the small ones, matters so deeply. Every time you say you'll do something and follow through, you build internal trust. That trust becomes confidence, and confidence becomes momentum. If you can't trust yourself with a morning routine, how can you trust yourself with millions? Integrity isn't built in boardrooms. It's built in quiet moments when no one's watching. Another powerful habit is reflection. The wealthy are thinkers. They review their days, their choices, their lessons. They journal what worked and what didn't, not to judge themselves, but to improve themselves. You see, experience isn't the best teacher. Evaluated experience is. If you can extract wisdom from your daily living, you can turn ordinary moments into extraordinary growth. And never forget this, growth matters more than gain. You can gain money without growing as a person, but it won't last. Real wealth is built on wisdom, discipline, humility, and contribution. The more you grow, the more your capacity to handle abundance expands. Money flows to those who can manage it, multiply it, and move it with purpose. So, if you ever find yourself chasing wealth, pause and ask, who am I becoming in this process? Because wealth is not the destination, it's the mirror. It doesn't define you, it displays you. Become the person worthy of abundance, and the money will come looking for you. In the end, wealth is not what you have, it's who you've become. As we close, remember, wealth is not something you pursue, it's something you attract by the person you become. Don't chase money, chase growth. Don't wish for easy, build capacity. Every decision, every habit, every hour is shaping your future fortune. The difference between average and abundant is not luck, it's discipline, vision, and philosophy. So, start where you are, with what you have, but don't stay there. Read more, learn more, serve more, and life will reward you more. The journey to wealth begins in the mind, but it ends in the masterpiece of who you become.